you're never going to be a healthy mom. You're always going to be over 200 pounds. You're always going to be in these red sweatpants. I would tell her, I'm sorry. I'm sorry I ever doubted her.
Hey ladies, pull up a chair. It's about to get real.
All right, so we have been talking a lot about this blueprint that we have. We've been talking about burning down the New Year's resolution nonsense, right? We've been talking about how I sat back one day and I was like, why do we set these New Year's resolutions about health? Why are the people around me continuing to set these? We've been in the health and wellness industry for 975 million years. We're dinosaurs.
Yes,
in
we are.
We've seen all of the things, or at least almost all of the things. We've researched, we've coached, we've been there. And I think that's really the point of view I want to jump into today, if you will, with me, Jamie, of the we've been there point of view.
Yeah.
Because I think you have such a powerful story. And I really want to talk about not the nuts and bolts of the blueprint, because we are absolutely getting into that. We have a whole ladies' room, which I just love, right? Like how many ladies we go out to eat or you're out with your friends, are like, I got to go to the ladies' room. And every girl is like, me too. Can I come too? Me too.
Yes.
Right? Like that's the whole point of this. It's beautiful. So we have the nuts and bolts and we have all of the nitty gritty and the individual plan. But before we even get to that plan, I think the most important piece is between our two ears, right? I know in my own life that has been riddled with situations and struggles and battles, just like all of ours has. The nitty gritty and the win always starts here. It always starts here. And so, Jamie, you've been 200 pounds. You've had your day one. You've had the look in the mirror moment, and maybe you've had prior to that. Maybe you could answer me this, prior to that day where you're like, and maybe it wasn't a day. Was it a day where you were like, this is it, I'm done, I'm never looking back? Or was it a series of those days? Have you had that moment where you were like, I'm so sick of this, like
Yeah.
I have to change? Was it one day that you can absolutely remember that was like your defining moment, or was it a series of days? Because I think that that's something that also women beat themselves up over, because I think we have those times where like, this is going to be the year I change. This is going to be the time I change, you know?
Yeah.
What was it for you back when you started?
That's a really, really good question. I've never been asked that question. And the rawness of how I want to answer this is I had a lot of day ones. And I had one very pivotal day one that trickled into figuring out that I needed more day ones because I didn't need to get everything super perfect on the front end because I needed to figure it out on my way to the journey. But my biggest pivotal, like the day that the line in the sand came, was the day that my daughter at 5 years old repeated the words that I said about myself, but she said it about herself, where I was in the mirror tearing myself down and I literally said, I hate my legs, and didn't think anything of it. And I have two kids. I had them both when I was 23. They're not twins. I'm married to my high school sweetheart, Matt. We've been together since we've been 15. At that point in my life, I was not confident in my 20s. I had no energy as a mom. I felt like I was like burning the candle at both ends, and it wasn't fair to Kirsten and Talon. It wasn't fair to Matt because every date night that we ever went on, like I was tugging at my shirt and I wasn't present in the moment because I was so worried about, is this person looking at me, or is it like, or who is he looking at? Like I wasn't in a good space mindset wise. So the biggest pivotal moment was that day that I decided I needed to start speaking to myself differently because I'm a reflection. My daughter is a reflection of what she's hearing, right? And I can't look at my reflection in the mirror and speak to myself like that anymore because the 200 pound Jamie Summers was the Jamie Summers that had the power to choose to change my life or not. And if I'm self-sabotaging every moment, like you talk about being the loudest voice in your own life, if I self-sabotage that every time I can, how, like, if I'm not my own hype girl, who's gonna hype me up? You know what I mean? Like, so I'd say that a lot of start dates. That was a moment where I decided, one, perspective shift, like I need to honor the 200-pound Jamie Summers in the mirror. She's the one that's going to change my life, period. So I spoke differently to myself because I needed to change the script of what I just created. I needed to, you ever hear the thing like there's so many attaboys you need to give someone before they kind of reverse like the negative, right? So like I had to change the script. And I decided also in that moment that I wanted to be, and I was going to be, the healthy mom that those two kids deserve, period, the end. And I was going to figure it out, and I was never going to lose the hope that there's solutions out there for me. I just needed to find them. And I needed to not carry that luggage like you talk about of, oh, I've tried everything and nothing works, or, oh, this is just how it is, mom life. Like, bullshit. No.
Yeah.
Like, I needed to put that down and I needed to figure it the hell out. And that's what I did. But yeah,
No, I think
it poured into other days.
I think a lot of people assume that like when you're like, well, I became my own hype girl and I wanted to honor this Jamie and like you make the decision and it just happens. And
Oh,
I don't think that's true, but I'm
I need
curious
to
for
work at
your
it.
journey. Like every day
Oh, yeah.
was that was you tuning into what am I saying to myself today? Why am I saying that to myself? What lies am I telling myself? What stories am I
Yeah.
repeating that are untrue? So how did you know to rewrite those essentially, or what was your plan? Like, you see all these people that are like, put a sticky note or do this or do that
Yeah.
or find a trainer or do this. Like, where did you start?
So there was a community that I got around and they asked me, Jamie, if nothing changes 5, 10, 15 years from now, like what does your life look like? Are you happy? Are you healthy? Like are you thriving? Like only you can answer that, right? So I got myself around a different conversation community, like a different perspective. I started pouring into my mindset. I one of the biggest books that ever changed my life was The Traveler's Gift. Love
Yeah.
that book. It was I didn't read any books out of high school, okay? Like I literally like paid someone to do my like vocab work. Like I hated it. Um so for me to pick up a book, that was crazy.
That is
But
the
I
best.
did, and I found myself rewriting my mindset and my perspective, and I stopped going through life and I started growing through it.
Mhm.
And as I got myself around a community that spoke different, um, that challenged me in great perspective thoughts, and picked up books that did the same, I started to rewrite the script that I kept telling myself. And was it an easy thing to like, oh, I drew the line and then I was like, oh, you go girl, like you're crushing it. I was like, I don't like your legs, I ain't gonna say it. You know what I mean? Like you have to undo what you've done. And if you keep playing the same record over and over, regardless if it's broken or not, like sometimes you just throw the damn thing out and put a different record on the player so that you hear a different tune. You know what I mean? So like what changed for me? I started reading books. I started having these like I'm a collaboration girl. I thrive off of that. Like it fills my cup and but I didn't start there. Like
Yeah.
I had to make that conscious choice to be like this needs to be the thing that I add into my small daily habits. And I started like 10 minutes a day, read a book. I'd start my day with like a YouTube motivate. I type in any like motivational video. I don't click play. And
Yeah.
I looked for one thing that I could put in my back pocket. Like I
Yeah.
give myself that, like, I don't need all the things. I just need one thing to put in my back pocket. And that way I can change my mindset about
Yeah.
myself and about my future.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I feel like that's so, I mean, we all have have those areas in our life that we do need to do that. We need to undo and redo some thinking, some stinking thinking, right?
Yeah.
And yeah,
I had a
and I
lot of that going on.
yeah, I love that you took that in bite-sized chunks. What would you say was what would you say was your biggest battle up front? Because you said you had a lot of day ones.
I think I think I spent too much time looking for that magic in a bottle, that magic, like I'm gonna do this thing and everything's gonna be like poof gone. Um, I needed to take some more ownership with the choices that I was making. Instead of like I eat healthy and I work out and I take vitamins, like I had to realize that well maybe the things that I'm doing isn't working, right? So like I had to like fall into that habit, like the walking into the grocery store and seeing like fruit and vegetables on like these fruit juices doesn't necessarily mean it's healthy for you, but I assumed it was back then, like, but then you turn it around and it's boatload of sugar, ton of carbohydrates, and what do you think that's going to do to your blood sugar? Like, so I think making a pivot in my past goes in line with changing my degree. And do I think you need a degree to change your life when it comes to your health? No, I don't. But getting around the people that can turn around and help you with real truth, I think that's important. And that's what I needed in my life. So I decided I'm going to change my degree. I was actually going to school to be a teacher. I had 10 classes left for elementary education and I would have been done. And when I tell you my parents and everyone that was like, you're crazy. What do you mean you're switching your degree? You're going to go longer. You're going to pay more money. Like, you're almost done. You're going to have your summers off. It's going to be like the best. And I'm like, but I'm over 200 pounds. I'm frustrated. I'm killing myself doing all the right things. And I have these two kids and my husband that I want to be the best version of myself for them. And also, I had to add on later for me.
Mm, that's beautiful.
So, switching my degree to get my bachelor's in health and wellness, it took a lot of the things that I thought you needed to do to reach your health completely off the table. And I'm like, wait a minute. So, it can be this simple?
Mm,
And when I started removing things, it's like that line in the sand kept like etching further and further. And it's like when you do good, you start to do a little bit better. And when you do better, you start to do even better. And like, so it turned into almost like a gamification for me on just simplifying the process because I was so over all the noise
yeah.
because the noise didn't get me anywhere but frustrated. And when you're working hard to stay frustrated, that is not a fun place to be. And I was there for way too long. So I think it was just raising the lid and then deciding that I needed to take the lid off and just choosing to grow through it. So I still think I have some day ones in front of me. I
Yeah.
think that you should never, and this might sound weird, but like I don't think you should ever reach your mountaintop goals. I
Yeah.
feel like if you do, then you stopped growing, you became complacent, and like
Yeah.
the journey's in the climb, and you always got to be moving forward. Like that, you always got to be striving. I don't know.
You talk a lot about too the this idea of um, you had a very strong why with seeing your daughter repeat that, and that was there. But obviously, that's not always in the forefront of your mind, and you waver and you wobble in the journey,
Yeah,
um, and you're learning. And I'm following this journey as you're learning and you're growing. You're really doing this all on yourself. It sounds like you're tackling. You've got a community, but for the most part, like we're only around people for this much of the day, and the rest is up to us.
right.
And I know I've heard you talk in the past about like revisiting your why and also this idea of like this thing that you want over here, this thing that's greater should supersede this thing you want right now. Can you tell
Oh,
me
yeah, yeah.
a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so I believe I got this mindset from a Rachel Hollis something that I listened to a long time ago, and I kind of evolved it a little bit. But in our life, we have to know the difference between what we want now and what we want most. And what we want most should always always trump what we want now. Because there was a time in my life, like Matt and I, like having that communication of what's important and why I'm doing what I'm doing. Like Matt's always been like, he's my best friend in my entire life, and he's super hot and I love him. Like, so it's just, it works perfect. Um, but like what I love about Matt a lot is that he decided to grow with me through this. So like he started picking up on books and like growing his mindset, and then we had like this health like connection too, you know, like we both want to be the healthiest parents that we can be. We want to um still rock date nights when we're 75 years old and, you know, not having to feel like we need a cane or anything like that. We want to protect the longevity of our health. So there was a time where you know, you know, motivation flees away. And Matt said something to me where it was like, Jamie, if you only, and he said it with like the best heart and the best light. So if like you're listening to this and you're like, oh, your husband said that, like I took it with the best heart. He said, Jamie, if you only do what you need to do when you feel like it, you will never be successful. And I'm like, oh, hot damn. Ain't
Mm-hmm.
that the truth?
Truth.
Because like we don't always want to feel it. Like we don't, there's gonna be days that are like so freaking awesome and we're like so excited to run through a brick wall and show up for it. And there's gonna be days that you're like, shut the damn door, put the blinds down, I'm not showing up.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's part of the journey, it's part of life, but
Yeah. No, I love that. I love that. If you could like speak to that 200-pound Jamie, or
you're gonna get me emotional right now.
now I'm crying. Um, because I know we both sat across the table from that. And you lived that, and she became one of your best friends, and she has morphed into who you are now. So, if you could speak to her though, now, today, what do
I
you
would
say?
tell her I would tell her I'm sorry. I'm sorry I ever doubted her.
Mm,
I'm sorry that I gave like all this outside like noise, the self script of you're never going to be a healthy mom. You're always going to be over 200 pounds. You're always going to be in these red sweatpants because I was not buying new jeans. I'm also frugal. So there's that. Um, you're not going to have the confidence. Like, man, I would be mortified if my daughter talked to herself the way that I talk to myself. I would tell her I was sorry. I was like the worst.
I feel this because I didn't go through anything from the like overweight side of this, but there was a point in my journey where I had to go like, you got to be your best friend. Like, if you would not say this to your best friend, if you would never say these things about or to your best friend, do not say them to yourself.
Right.
It was like a way that I had that also wake up call and like change that self talk. And it changes you. It changes
Yeah.
you. And you have grace with yourself just as you would. I mean, look at us. We have so much grace with other people. And
Oh,
and
yeah.
and then we're just so hard on ourselves. So I appreciate your vulnerability here because I think that this is unfortunately a place that is a dark gray area in the fitness industry, specifically for women, where there are women right now, even listening, that are in this quiet closet of a space with themselves. Um, and they are, boxing gloves on, just whammying themselves and thinking they're the only ones and thinking they're the worst and thinking they have all these mental problems and thinking they have all these issues. And you know what it's like to be in that pit. And I think it's important to say you're not alone, and to say
Yeah.
that it's not weird and it's not even necessarily wrong. It's very real, and you go through it. But I think the other side is the encouragement to say, like, yeah, you're not alone. This isn't weird. But you can also be your own best friend, and that we want to acknowledge that we see you. We see you, and you don't have to hide, and you don't have to keep it quiet. And that's what we're here for, is to help women, right? To
Yeah.
release that and let go of that and put that suitcase down and
Right.
choose a different bag, choose a different thing to carry, and you can carry joy, and you can carry, I think this could trickle into another conversation that we have, in the ladies room, because I would love to talk about this, is that idea of self pride. Like, it's okay, as women, we're like, oh, don't be prideful, don't be like, oh, who does
Right.
she think she is,
Right.
oh, like, you know what I mean? But like, no, we were fearfully and wonderfully made to be beautiful. We are
Right.
beautiful creations as women. That's what women are. We're all beautiful. And
Right.
to sit back and feel like, ooh, who are we to? I think there's a conversation there that needs to be had there, where it's like, no, it's okay to love on yourself.
Right.
It's okay to say, like, great job, girl, you showed up today. It makes me want to cry, like those days. There's hard days. And the more of those you can stack on each other, I think the further along the field you go.
Right. It's so crazy that we always end up coming back to the gosh, we're so much alike. Because as you were just talking, I used to always say that, like, I don't have a problem with the grit and the grind. It's the grace that I have a problem with for myself. But I'll give you all the grace in the world. But the grace on ourselves, like, we just don't allow it. I don't know what it is. Like, it's just we're so hard on ourselves as women. We're wearing all these different hats, and half the time it's not even the hat that looks good on our damn head, because it's somebody else's freaking hat.
Ah, yes. Girl,
And
I wrote a whole paper on this. I wrote a whole, not a hat though, it was shoes. I
yeah,
wrote a whole thing about walking in the wrong pair of shoes, and
yeah,
how uncomfortable it is, and how awkward it is, and how you end up, your feet are mangled and they're too tight,
yeah,
or they're too, and how, like, you can't even present yourself appropriately if you're walking around in the wrong freaking shoes.
yeah,
And it's like that freedom of just owning it, and
yeah,
loving yourself there, and giving yourself the same grace you would give to your best friend, the
mm,
same grace you give to Matt, the same grace you give to your kids, like, giving that to ourselves. And I think it's like that it switched for me when I realized, like, hey, beating yourself up isn't working.
right,
Like, you know what I mean?
exactly.
You have that moment where you're like,
Yeah,
why am I holding on to this suitcase? I'm
right,
carrying this as if, like, if I'm not hard on myself, if I don't continue to beat myself up, I'm gonna fail. I'm
right,
gonna drop the ball. Well, guess what? Yeah, the ball's already freaking dropped. You're already failing. You're
right,
all like, you holding on to this, you're just sinking further. Why
right,
don't you try something different? Well, what's the only other option? The opposite of beating myself up is loving myself. The opposite of all of this angst is to just have some grace.
right,
And when you can start to do that,
right.
it's like, oh,
But if you're hanging on to those suitcases, sometimes, most times, you need someone or
mm,
something to come in front of you and hand you something. So you have to let something go so you can pick up something good.
yeah,
And then
so
it's up to you what you do with it.
right,
Like,
right,
you try reading a book holding a suitcase, like, you can't even
right,
turn the damn page. Put that down, and then, you know what I mean?
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
and then one other thing that you made me think of that I don't remember how you said it. Something about pride. But put this perspective on, and maybe you could take this and mic drop it. It is selfish if you do not put yourself first.
oh,
That's
absolutely,
selfish,
absolutely. I
you know?
absolutely agree with that.
And sometimes people think it's the other way.
You
Don't be
haven't.
selfish.
Mhm.
No, it's selfish if you don't.
We have it so twisted. I love that. I love that. It's selfish if you don't. Because look at who you've become. Look at what you've been able to give to your family, and the life that you've built and created. And you had that day one, right? And you said like, no, I'm gonna selfishly put myself first. And the return on that investment has been like so many other people that you would have never impacted if you didn't put yourself first.
It's emotional about that. You look at your roots, your beginnings, things that if you would have told me that back then, I'm like, there's no freaking way. Like, I was a stay-at-home mom at the time. My best friends were Kirsten Talon and Mickey Mouse. My social hour was walking through Target every aisle. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's you go from that, and then deciding to grab a hold of something that will change your life in the direction you want it to go, and to where you are today. Like, I'll never forget where I came from,
Amen.
but I don't have the frustration piece of it anymore. I feel like God walks us through paths so that we can turn around and pave a way quicker for other people.
Mhm.
And I'm very honored for what I get to do because I've been there, I get it, and it is an emotional thing when other people grab a hold of it too.
I love
That's
that.
what we're all looking for. Everybody is looking for that success within their own path. And sometimes this day and age, sometimes this industry, sometimes I feel like sometimes social media is social unsocial, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's nice when you have people that can look you in the eyeballs and be like, I get it.
Yeah.
I got you
Yeah.
and you got this. Um so I love what I get to do. I'm so honored like to wake up every day in your passion, knowing that you get to make a true difference in somebody's life. Like it's an emotional thing for me when people turn around and just share the raw truth of the difference that they make. And you know how many times people will be like, you changed my life. And it's like,
You
you did
changed that.
that.
Yeah. Yeah.
You did that.
Yeah.
I didn't do that. You did that.
Yeah.
So, no,
Well, I have to ask you this now too, then. How do you feel about your legs now?
I love my legs, actually.
How do you really
There's,
feel?
I really like, and Matt tells me it all the time too. So there's that. My husband loves my legs.
Okay.
He said he's always loved my legs.
You're
Back in high
giving
school, volleyball. Sorry, babe, but I'm telling our
hope.
secrets.
You're giving the people hope, and I love
No,
that. And I think there's
but
hope
they're
for change.
strong.
I think there's hope for change for people that like you can actually change, but also that perspective, right? Like you can look at it and say the same thing. Like they're strong and
Yeah.
they carry me here, they carry me there. There's so much power in perspective. I read a book and it's kind of I feel like this can kind of like encompass everything we've talked about and also challenge our listeners. I think my challenge out of this conversation would be that mental awareness, like where are you at today? Can you do a check-in today of where are you at, and are you this side of the coin where you are constantly downplaying yourself, either on your own beating your own self up, or when somebody compliments you, are you cowering back and playing small, because you're afraid to show that love of yourself? And if so, can we challenge you today to recognize that and then put into practice something of self love? Because we think that you can get yourself more to where you want to be by doing that. And
Absolutely.
this book I read, it had this beautiful picture, and I'll never forget it. It's been still so great to me. This it's talking about lioness, and how this lioness, this fierce lioness that's a mama, and she's it's giving this picture, and it's talking about women and saying how, if I were to say, Jamie, I love your sweater, most women are like, oh, this whole thing, I got it at Target. It was like $10. Like, or if you complimented on my hair, I'd be like, oh, thanks. Well, yours is great. Like I toss it back to you, or I'm like, oh my gosh, my hair, it's a mess today. Like, oh my, it's so dirty. Like, no, it's not. You shift. But in this book, she said, could you, like, if you picture this stunning lioness standing there, and I have nails so I can do it, but like she has her claws out. And if you were to say to a lioness, oh my gosh, your claws, she wouldn't be like, oh, these all dirty things. Like, blah, blah. No, the lioness would be like, these? Yes. She's like, look at them. They are so long and they are so strong, and I use them to kill prey, to feed my babies.
Yeah.
And they are so, and then in the same breath, she would say, and watch this, and they would go away and she would play with her cubs. And she would say, and also look at what I can do with my, claws when they're retracted, and I play with my cubs, and the fierce and the beauty that she sees within her own claws, because she's seeing them for what they do and what they bring forth for her in her life versus what they actually look like, right? So she's like, oh, these dirty old things. No, she's like, yeah, they help me provide for my babies, and I can play with my babies. And I think for us as women, if we could put into that one practice where today we just go, you know what? I'm going to take these legs, or I'm going to take these arms, and I'm going to take them, and I'm going to move them around because I can today. I have breath in my lungs. I have the ability to do something today. And I always say, do what you can with where you're at, do what you can with what you have where you are at today, right? Like that's the thing. And so I think my challenge out of your whole story is such a beautiful story of real raw life and real raw transformation, that we can all find that power within ourselves. But it starts here with that recognizing of, what am I saying to myself? Why? And one of the biggest things, and I'll leave it with this, a journaling tip, even if you're not a journaler, I challenge you to do this. Like, just jot down right now, like, what do I believe is the thing that's holding me back right now? Write it down. And once you write it down, then the next level, you say why. And you write it down. Everything that comes out, you can throw this paper away later. Write it all down, literally everything. And then you read that and you go, why? And you go 3 levels down deep with why. You just question it, at least 3. You can go 6, but keep questioning why. Why did I answer that? Why? Why did I say that? Why? And you're gonna get to this root. And when you get to that root, you surrender it. You surrender that. You go, okay, this is it. And so, how am I going to transform that story now? Why? We don't have to know why we got to that point necessarily. Like, it's from my baby mama trauma, blah blah blah. Like, we don't need that,
Right.
right? But we just have to recognize that this is the story. This is the story. So how do I change the story to something that's going to get me to where I want to be? Because in the end, just like in your story, it's you. It's 200-pound Jamie Summers that got you to here today. And that can be for all of us, for where we want to be, as the choices we're going to make today, right now.
Right. I love that. It's so good.
Thank you for sharing.
You're welcome. I had no idea what you were going to ask. So, like, I didn't mean to get all emotional on it, but I think that it is. It's an emotional thing. And I get it, like, everything's a process, and it's what you decide to show up for, and it's what you decide to give in to. And I ain't giving in. Like,
I love
I'm
it.
gonna keep fighting. Like, we don't have, I always tell people, like, whatever you decide to do for, like, your line in the sand, and I'm gonna do this. Like, that doesn't have an end date on it until God calls us home. So, like, it's not 30 days and done. It's not 45 days and done. It's not 60 days and done. It's not 90 days and done. It's the rest of your happy, healthy life.
Yep.
So honor that with the choices that are going to change it.
Chop wood, carry water.
Oh my gosh, so good. I love that book.
Chop
So
wood, carry
good.
water, baby, every day.
Yep.
Focus on the controllables. Focus on those steps. And
Yep.
yeah, ugh, I
So
love it.
good. But yeah, no, I do appreciate you asking those questions. Some of those no one's ever asked me. And I think that people do, like you talk about, people are in their closet crying, trying to figure it out, just like I was. And nobody talks about the realness of, like, the not sexy, exciting moments, because we're like, we're fine. We're fine. We're not fine.
Yeah.
And I think that I have such a big heart to just kind of lay it all out on the table and I'll always pull up a chair to my table to like talk about the things, and I'll even give up my own seat if I have to. You know what I mean? Like, so no, that was really enlightening for me. Even like, I just love you and appreciate you, and I'm so grateful to have good women in my life, and you're definitely that girl. My
I
sister from another mister.
Yes, girl. I feel the same about you, and I am just fortunate that our paths cross and that we get to do this together. I really feel like your story is powerful. It already has proven powerful. You've already impacted so many people's lives, Jamie, and I think that you being vulnerable there and actually sharing that is going to just touch so many people. And it's one of those things that if it's not touching them now, they're going to pass it to somebody that needs it, or it's going to be for them at some point because that's how life goes. So I am so grateful for you. And I think I'm excited for the women to hear this and comment and share and open up. And I also know that the more vulnerable we can be, and the more vulnerable a woman can be with us, like that's that deeper connection. And that truly is what builds that longevity in getting to where you want to be, you know, that community and having that real community, not that superficial nonsense hype community,
Right,
that real community, you know, that can cry with you in the closet and then be like, all right, now put your big girl panties on and let's freaking go. You
right.
know,
Yeah. I
love you.
love I love you. It's so exciting. But yeah, being a part of that change, you know?
Yep.
Our story is always bigger than ourselves.
Yep.
So thank you for challenging me on that today. So, all right, girl.
All right. See
Love
you.
you.
Love you too.